Hello, everyone. My name is Catherine, and I work with SEB Housing. This is the information session for the 10 affordable apartments at Court Crossing in Plymouth. The purpose of this session is to give you a little background information on the available apartments and also cover the application, eligibility, and lottery processes, and then what to expect after the lottery is run. So if you have any questions during this session, you're encouraged to either type them into the Zoom chat or you can unmute yourself. When you came into the meeting, you were muted just to minimize any outside noise during the presentation. This is a recorded session because anyone who was not able to make it, who wants to see it, will be able to do so on our SEB Housing YouTube channel after tonight. And as you can see, there's going to be a few slides that I go through just for some background information, and wanted to start out with who we are. So SEB Housing, we're an off-site affordable housing consulting group. We're not the on-site management team for the building. We've been hired by the developer to market the affordable unit. We're going to be the agency that is conducting this information session, eventually conducting the lottery, collecting and reviewing applications, and all of that. In the initial phases, we're going to be your main point of contact rather than the management office, but then further along in the process, the on-site management team at Court Crossing is going to be your main point of contact. Oh, and I see your, yes, Monica and Megan, thank you for joining. If anybody joins us, obviously I'll open it up for any questions, but since there's no other participants right now, what I'll do is just assume that this is going to be a recorded call, and anyone who has questions after the fact will reach out. But feel free to stay if you would like to, just kind of be going through all of the application lottery process and all of that. So the first step in the process for any applicants is to apply for the lottery. You'll be found, hopefully, to qualify for the affordable housing program based on what you self-report in that application. You'll be in touch with SEB Housing during that time, and we can answer any questions you have on the affordable housing program. We'll process your application and run the lottery. The second step in the process is if your position is high enough on the waiting list, you'll be put in contact with the leasing office to do their lease eligibility. And at that point, if you've rented an apartment before, that normally includes checking credit, rental history, background checks, that sort of thing. And you'll reserve one of the affordable apartments if you're found to be lease eligible. After lease eligibility, you'll then be referred back to SEB Housing to complete a program certification with us. And that's the point in the process where you'll have to supply your supporting information, so income, asset, and tax documentation to us. Once that screening is complete, you'll be free to sign a lease and schedule your move-in date with the leasing office. If you haven't already, you should go to our website, so sebhousing.com. If you click on affordable housing opportunities and you select I want to rent, there is a page specific to Court Crossing in Plymouth. It has a downloadable version of the application. It has a PDF of the information packet, which is a document that has a lot of info on a lot of the information that I'm going to be going over during this session. And what you'll need to do is complete that lottery application, and then you can submit it to us in one of several ways. So most people scan or email it to us as an attachment. You can do that. You would send it to info@sebhousing.com. You can fax it to us. Fax number is on the first page of the application. You can send it to us by regular mail. Our office is in Needham. And you can also, if you're in the Needham area, you can drop it, in our Dropbox at 257 Hillside Ave. So any of those options, whatever works best for you, that's how you want to get your application into us before the deadline of April 8th. And as I said, there's no supporting documentation that's needed at that point. It's you'd just be submitting all the information to us, and later on, if you're one of the top lottery households, you'll be able to submit that to us at a later date, or you'd be required to submit that to us at a later date. You don't have to be a resident of Plymouth to apply for this lottery. It's open to anyone. Just want to put that out there. Sometimes we have some questions on it. And Monica and Megan, feel free to correct me if I'm wrong, but our impression is that these units will be immediately available following the required screening. So there won't be any wait in terms of reserving or leasing the apartments.
Correct.
Awesome. And so just to give you some information on the property, and again, you guys can chime in if you'd like to, but this is a brand new rental development in downtown Plymouth. There's going to be a total of 10 units in the building, all of which will be affordable apartments leased to households that have a total household income at or below 80% of the area median income for the area. It's a great location. They're near the waterfront, local restaurants and shops, and the units themselves will have in-unit washer dryers, stainless steel appliances, quartz countertops, on-site parking that is included for residents. And the rent for the one bedrooms, which these are all one bedroom units, will be $2,324. Did you guys want to chime in with any other kind of amenities or just the location at all?
No, I think you're doing a great job. You got it covered. There's
Okay.
not much really for amenities there. It's meant to be just the amenity is mostly living downtown. You're
Yep.
walking very close walking distance to several restaurants, shops, the waterfront, all sorts of attractions. So I'd say that's really the main draw is the location.
Awesome. And so the rents themselves, so we get this question a lot too. The rents are set. They are not, they won't change in accordance with an applicant's income or financial circumstances. So for this housing program, the rents have been set using a formula that's based on the Federal Housing and Urban Development, so HUD's area median income for the Plymouth, which is also in the Boston area. The rents could increase once per year, but that wouldn't happen until it would never happen in the middle of your lease, and it would only happen upon lease renewal. That usually is triggered by HUD's release of the area median incomes each spring. So they change each year, and therefore sometimes the rents will increase as well. So since we anticipate there may be more interested and eligible applicants than available units, that's why we are holding a lottery for the affordable apartments. So the lottery will only be open to households who qualify within the income parameters and the other qualifying eligibility requirements that I'm going to talk about now. So there's 4 eligibility requirements listed in the information packet. The first is that households need to have income that is below this maximum income limit. This is the 80% of the area median income. So if you're a household of one person, your total household income would need to be below $91,200. If you're a 2-person household, it would need to be below $104,200. The second thing to keep in mind for eligibility purposes really isn't applicable because these are all one bedrooms, but as you can see here, it says priority is going to be given based on household composition. That's really not true in this case because all applicants are going to have the same priority because these are only one bedroom apartments. So if you're a 2-person household or a 1-person household, you're going to have the same priority on the waiting list. Households also can't own a home upon moving in. So if you own a home now, it would need to be sold prior to completing your program certification with SEB Housing. You wouldn't be eligible for this to sign a lease at Port Crossing if you still own a property. And then finally, this doesn't come up very often, but households or applicants cannot have financial interest in the development or be considered a related party. So if you work for the management team or if you know the developer, if you work with them, you wouldn't be eligible to apply. As you can see here, so there's an approximate minimum income for to lease a 1-bedroom apartment, and that's $69,000. Do you have a question?
Nope, I'm sorry.
Oh, no, it's okay. If you have Below $69,700, it's likely that you won't be eligible for this opportunity. So most management companies, including the management company at Court Crossing, has set a minimum income amount to ensure that ensure that tenants are able to afford the rent, regardless of whether or not they're market rate renters or affordable unit renters. So this is an approximate minimum income because the management team could see that you have, maybe a significant amount of assets that you're able to access to pay the rent. So this number is not set in stone. And I should mention too that if you have a Section 8 or MRVP, some sort of rental subsidy voucher that you plan on using at one of these apartments, this minimum income does not apply to you because the agency that administers your voucher is going to be paying for part of your rent. So your rent share will be calculated by that agency. So this minimum income amount needs to be reached by anyone who doesn't have a voucher already. And like I mentioned, you won't need to submit any of your income information to get into this lottery, but do just want to mention how we will be counting your income when the time comes, just so you have an idea of that. So the income is counted for this program as your gross income. So it's a projection of what your income will be over the next 12 months for all household members. So that includes, bonuses that you may receive, overtime. The only real exceptions to that are wages of minors. So if you have a teenager, a 16-year-old in your household who's earning a wage, we're not going to count their wage income towards your rent. Also, dependent full-time students. So say you have a 20-year-old that is still a dependent living in your household, and they're working and earning a wage, we're only going to count the first $480 of their wage income. But other than that, any income coming into the household, whether it be wages or Social Security payments, child support, pension, anything like that, we do need to count towards your total household income. And like I said, it is the gross income. Although most of us are not taking home the full amount of our salary, the affordable housing program does require that we count the gross amount. And also, everyone's income circumstances are unique. So some applicants are going to have a weekly salary that is very consistent throughout the year, but there's also people who are working per diem or are self-employed or working seasonally. So if that's the case, we may need to ask for more information from you if you are have more sporadic income. So when you're filling out your application, just make sure that you're listing all types of income on there. So not just wages, but like I said, Social Security, unemployment, pension payments, anything like that. There is no minimum, I already mentioned that, but like I said, there's no minimum income for the affordable housing program, but the management company has set this minimum income. So just make sure that you're somewhere, if you're way below that and you don't, below this $69,700 and you don't have a lot of assets or you don't have a housing voucher, you're likely not going to be eligible for this lottery. If you submit your application, SCB Housing will take a look at it and we'll talk to you and we'll, ask you for more information if we need it, or you may just get a denial from us to confirm that you're under income for this opportunity. There's no asset limit for affordable rental opportunities. So you could have a significant amount of income. Maybe you're retired, you're looking to downsize. You would still be eligible. You just need to know that we will still need to collect income information related to your assets, even though there's no income limit. And that's because if there's income being generated by your assets, that income will need to be counted, or a portion of that income will need to be counted towards your total household income. And when we talk about assets, it's not just your checking account, your savings account. It also includes the net cash value of any retirement accounts like 401ks, amounts that might be in like a Venmo account, things like that. So as I mentioned earlier, if you're interested in this opportunity, you should apply as soon as possible just to get the process started. SCB Housing will review your application and contact you if anything appears to be missing from the lottery application, or if we have any questions for you, and you'll have a chance to resubmit with that information. So if you're found to be eligible for the lottery, you're going to be sent an email with your lottery application number, and it will be in the form of a series of numbers. That is the number that's going to be drawn in the lottery itself. It's meant to be an anonymous identifier, so your name isn't called during the lottery. It's not a ranking of any sort, though, so it just corresponds with the order in which your application was approved. So if you were the very first person to submit a completed application for court crossing, your number, your lottery application number, will be A.001. Also attached to that email with your lottery application number is going to be a documentation requirements guide. So that is basically a package that SCB puts together to just give you details on all of the items that we will need from you prior to final approval by SCB Housing. So if you're one of those top households on the waiting list, and we're asking you after you've reserved a unit to submit all of your income, asset, and tax documentation, hopefully you've reviewed that requirements guide and you have kind of your pay stubs, your tax returns, that sort of thing, waiting and ready to be sent in to us. So it's just kind of a cheat sheet on that. That email too that has your lottery application number, just make sure that you are reviewing it and everything looks correct to you when you see that. It's a little bit less important for this lottery because there is only one unit size that you'd be applying for, the 1-bedroom, but there is still other information in that email that you want to double check and let us know if anything is inaccurate. So the lottery itself will take place on April 24th at 6 p.m. It will be similar to this format, meaning it will be a Zoom session. I'll screen share with you. You'll be able to see the lottery happening. And you don't need to be present during the lottery, but you can be. The lottery results are going to be sent to everyone via email that evening. So it will not be a long wait for you to get those lottery results if you do not attend. And every lottery number is going to be picked. Sometimes we think of lotteries, we might think of, in this case, there's 10 units, so there's going to be 10 application numbers drawn, but that's not the case here because the purpose of the lottery is going to be to establish an order for the waiting list. So if we have 25 applicants, all 25 applicants are going to have a place on the lottery list. And, because it's unlikely that the first 10 households on a waiting list are going to lease all 10 units in that order. It usually takes several more applicants to get all of the units filled. Households who are entered into the lottery might later be found to be ineligible by the leasing office, or they might decide not to rent an apartment. So if your lottery application number is drawn later in the lottery, you shouldn't lose hope at being able to move forward and move into one of these apartments if you're found to be eligible. Because if someone ahead of you on the waiting list drops off, we'll be contacting you to submit your information. So like I said, after the lottery, the waiting lists are populated, and typically that information is ready by the next morning at the very latest. And you'll get an email from us with the waiting lists attached. You'll find your lottery application number on the waiting list, and you'll be able to see where you were drawn. The next step in the process then is to apply for the lease with the leasing office. So you will be put in contact at that point with the leasing office, the management team over at Court Crossing, and you'll have about 5 days to connect with them to start that lease screening process. And like I said, that is the process where you might have to give, reference checks, background checks, credit check, that sort of thing. And do keep in mind too that leasing offices typically are inviting more households to complete their lease screenings than there are available units. So in this lottery, there's 10 1-bedroom affordable units, but more if there's more than 10 people on the waiting list, they may be calling more than 10 households to complete the lease screening. That's very typical. And like I mentioned, it's just because we want to make sure that the units are filled and nobody's waiting for people ahead of them if they're not interested in the opportunity anymore. But for that reason, we always like to remind people that if you're applying for this opportunity, you don't want to immediately give notice to your current landlord because you haven't yet been approved by the leasing office or by SCB Housing until you've gone through both of those screenings. Once you're lease approved, that's the point where if you have a position near the top of the waiting list, it will be beneficial to you because you'll have the first choice of affordable units in the building. So maybe you wanted a unit on an end of the hallway or on a certain floor. You would be able to make that decision and complete your reservation with the management team if you're the first in line on the waiting list. Once you've reserved that affordable unit, the leasing office is going to notify us here at SCB Housing, and we'll then contact you to coordinate the submission of your income, asset, and tax documentation. And that's the point where you're going to gather all of your information, the income information for us, and you'll have about 10 days from the date that that's requested to supply all of that information to us. It's a lot of information, so it's very likely that maybe you don't have anything all at once, or maybe you submit something to us that sparks a question from us. Don't worry about that. SCB Housing will be working with you to make sure that you get a completed application into us. And then once you've signed your lease, you're done with lease screenings until just before your renewal date. So if you sign a lease, say for May 1st, around this time next year, maybe a little bit earlier, you will have to complete a recertification of your income with the leasing office if you want to continue to live in the affordable unit. If your income increases during the year, it doesn't mean that you're no longer going to be eligible when the time comes to renew your lease, because households on this affordable housing program remain eligible for the program and to continue living in the unit as long as your household income doesn't exceed 140% of the area median income. So to give you an idea of what that means, if you qualified as a two-person household for this lottery, your income would have needed to be below $104,200. That same family can make up to $145,800 at the time of their recertification next year in order to remain eligible for the affordable apartment. So, that's a question we get a lot too. A lot of information is in the information packet about that. You don't want to think that you wouldn't be able to get a different job or, get a raise and not be able to continue to be a resident of the affordable unit. So that about covers what I wanted to get through for the information from the information packet for court crossing. If anyone is watching this after the fact and has any questions for us, this is the best email. This is the best way to reach us is by emailing info@scbhousing.com. But you can also give us a call at this number here, so 617-782-6900 extension 1 if you prefer to call. And once again, the application deadline is April 8th, so a little bit less than a month left to get your application in. And if you have any questions for us, please let us know. And thank you to Megan and Monica for joining as well.
Thank you, Catherine.
Thank you so much.
Have a good night.
You as well.
Bye.
Bye-bye.